to be like a peak performer, do you need a level of obsession?
I've never met an athlete who's at the top of their game who's not somewhat obsessed, and it's their life, it's their livelihood. Is there such thing as a healthy obsession? I don't know. You could give two athletes the same stimulus and one responds differently to another. If you want to be good at sport, you have to choose your parents wisely. So the best thing we can do is teach the athletes to be world class at things that require no talent, going to bed on time, not resetting your alarm, getting up on time, doing your stretches. If you want to do well in anything in life, you can probably focus on 3 things, but if you do 4, you're not going to do well at anything. You always go for ups and downs. That kind of mindset of not thinking it's over until it's over. The best ones will look in the mirror, the worst ones will look through the window, and then blame other people. You can always do a little bit more than you realise. Behave like your son is watching. I wouldn't want to be anyone else other than me. It's my biggest achievement, is having a healthy family.
So what is one word that defines world-class athletes?
Oh, good, you're here. Come on. This is the centre of performance. Whenever there's a top performance in New Zealand, it all comes from here. That's Lisa Carrington. She's been doing that for days. That's the boy who got the hole-in-one in Tokyo. Oh, he did it again. Hey, Finn, how's the performance going?
Top tier.
Nice. This is our Generate room. In here, you'll find our top performers helping Kiwis maximise their KiwiSaver investments. Get in here, Finn. Maximise.
Right,
Generate. Putting performance first.
Dr. Dan Plews, welcome to my podcast.
No, pleasure to be here. It really is. It's great.
I think the best way to start is by asking, who is Dr. Dan Plews?
Oh, well, yeah, straight off the bat, I guess first and foremost, I'm a dad, dad of 2, 8-year-old and a 6-year-old, and a husband as well. And I guess entrepreneur, businessman, but mainly in the sports area, sports scientist and a bit of an athlete. So I like to partake myself in Ironman and, well, used to Ironman and now getting into some other things. So, yeah.
Other things?
Like Hyrox. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah.
But I've worked with, I've been involved in like sports since I was 9 years old and worked with various Olympic athletes around New Zealand, America's Cup, Emirates Team New Zealand. They're pretty diverse.
Yeah, because it was Eric Murray, who's one of New Zealand's greatest Olympians of all time, who messaged me and said, you should get Dr. Dan on your podcast. And I wasn't aware of who you were or much about you until that point. So let's compare your answer about who Dr. Dan Plews is compared to AI.
Okay. This is going to be interesting.
See what you think about this. Dr. Dan Plews is one of the most influential figures in modern endurance sport, especially in triathlon, exercise physiology, and high-performance coaching. He sits at a rare intersection, world-class athlete, plus scientist, plus coach, plus systems thinker.
There you go. Maybe I should have said that.
It's not bad, is
it? Not bad. Not bad, yeah. It's much better than me.
So, yeah, we'll get into... you've worked with something like 30, like world champions, Olympians, gold medalists, including, Eric Murray and Dame Lisa Carrington. Eric Murray, when I asked him about you, he said, Dr. Dan Plews created some hellish sessions just to try and break me.
Yeah, I never did though. Not quite. I tried my best.
And Dame Lisa, when I told her you're coming on the podcast and did she have any tea she could spill, she said, hey Dom, this will be a great chat. Ask him how his chin-ups are going these days. What is it? What's the in-joke?
It's a good question. Yeah, well, as a bit of background, obviously, I did a lot of triathlon and specifically Ironman triathlon when I was, throughout most of my career, and I wasn't that physically strong, but I was pretty good at Ironman triathlon, and to the point where I could barely do a chin-up. So she thought that was hilarious, and obviously still does. But I've managed to change that around a little bit in more recent years.
Oh, because you'd need to for Hyrox.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I've gone from, back when I was doing Ironman, I was 73, 74 kilos, and I'm now 82, 83 kilos. So.
And how many can she do?
I wouldn't even be able to count. I mean, she'd need weight to stop her, I think. I've loads. She went on to say,
pick his brains on training because he's incredibly knowledgeable in that space. Also, I always like to see what gadgets he's using because he's always finding new ways to recover and monitor training. How closely did you work with her and her coach, Gordon Walker?
Well, I mean, I would say I worked more closely with Gordy than I did with Lisa. I mean, I've known Gordy since forever, and I guess because before 2016, I was with the rowing, in New Zealand rowing, so 2012, London, Rio, and then I kind of switched, and then I started helping and been helping Gordy more, because really, as an exercise physiologist, you're more talking with the coaches rather than the athletes. You're kind of influencing how the athletes, you're monitoring the athletes, looking at how they're recovering, look at how the training is. But a lot of it would be with Gordy, and Gordy's also a good friend of mine. So half of it was we just go out on bike rides and talk about training and have some great ideas. And I think that was where the best ideas come from often.
Yeah, Lisa Carrington, the GOAT when it comes to Olympians in New Zealand. It's hard to imagine there's going to be anyone in my lifetime that's going to beat what she's done. What sets her apart? I mean, you've got high performers or the top 5%, and she's at the absolute peak of that. What makes her so much better than anyone else from your observations?
Well, as I always tell most people who want to be good at sport, is that you have to choose your parents wisely. I mean, unfortunately there is a lot of genetics involved in how good you are as an athlete. But I think with someone like Lisa, is that what I always see is the way they always train with a lot of intent. So what I mean by that is it's not necessarily they're always training as hard as they possibly can, but if Gordy would say this is a endurance-based paddle, it would be an endurance-based paddle. If it's a threshold-based paddle, high intensity, she would make sure it's exactly as prescribed. But also, I mean, attention to detail. So always looking at those smaller parts that make the bigger picture. So, like the going to bed on time, what's happening with the technology, whether the boat's right, the nutrition, all those small little details are always really finely tuned. And I often think about Eric and Hamish in this regard. Obviously, they were the best pairs probably the world's ever seen.
Yeah. And
those two as a pair brought those qualities together, because I wouldn't say Eric is that dialed in when it comes to the details, but Hamish was. So, and I would say that Hamish wasn't necessarily that great at his intent with training, but Eric was, and those two together kind of brought that perfect match, and obviously the physiological specimens as well. But yeah, I think those are the main attributes. And I actually, when I was riding last week with Gordy, he says as a coach, the best thing we can do is teach the athletes to be world class at things that require no talent. And I think all those athletes are really good at that as well, which is the simple things, which is going to bed on time, not resetting your alarm, getting up on time, doing your stretches, doing your core work, doing those small things all around the training that end up making the bigger picture.
Yeah, and speaking of that, Dame Lisa sent me that message at 20 to 6 this morning.
Well, there you go. She was probably up ready to go for a...
Yeah, it's crazy that she's still got the drive and discipline to do it after achieving so much. Like there's nothing else for her to prove.
It is, and I think I often think about that, and I think it always, with lots of those athletes, it's just so intrinsically motivated. It's about them being better for themselves and trying to achieve what they can achieve. And I don't even necessarily think they're that into like them. Well, obviously the medals are important, but I think it's all about that personal improvement and continuously getting, knowing that they can do a little bit more and get better. And I think that's what we often see in those types of individuals.
Yeah, so inspiring. And Gordon Walker, what's he doing now? Because he finished up with Dame Lisa towards the end of 2025.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have to get him on, and he can talk to you a bit more about that. But he's still going at the moment. I don't think he's fully finished. I think it's in that crossover period, but I'm not. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to get him on.
You have to get him
inspiring
on.
guy. Yeah, he's done so much. It's one of those incredible sporting partnerships.
Yeah, and he's been a great mentor to me as well. I've learned so much on the coaching realm, and some of the chats that we have when we go out on our rides, they're amazing. And you learn so much. So, and I mean, I was when we were out riding last week, so we go to Puhoi and we do like a little gravel loop on our bikes, and I moved to New Zealand in 2010, and that was the same, basically to come and do a PhD. So I got a PhD scholarship with High Performance Sport New Zealand to do a PhD, and at the same time he'd just taken over that kayak job. So, long time ago, we've both been in the realm of sports performance.
and Eric Murray, what's he talking about when he says Dr. Dan created some hellish sessions just to try and break me? What is a hellish session?
Well, so when it was more like in his 2016 campaign, I was kind of in control of his erg sessions a lot. So we did some pretty brutal brutal stuff on the erg. I mean, one that springs to mind was we used to do a session which was, it sounds easy, but it was 6 by 1 minute with 6 minutes recovery, and it was max. We'd be seeing lactic acid levels of in the 20s after it, like really brutal stuff. And also one time, and to this day, it's probably one of the most impressive feats I've seen from an athlete. He did 4 2Ks in under 6 minutes back to back with 4 minutes recovery. I mean, if anyone knows anything about rowing, most people would, like a great rower would give their bottom, give their hind legs to break 6 minutes once. He did it 4 times in one session.
Most mortals would be vomiting, right?
Yeah, well, I couldn't do it for one, and most rowers can't do it for one. So, but yeah, we had some real big sessions on the ergs, which was great, because in that, during that time, Hamish would like cycling and Eric didn't really like cycling, so sometimes Hamish would go out and do a bit of riding and Eric could come in and do some more on the erg. I mean, Hamish did stuff on the erg as well, but there was we definitely got. There's no point hanging around if you're on the erg. We had some pretty spicy sessions. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
And did you work very closely with their coach, Dick Tonks?
Not so much with Dick. I mean, because in that early stage, I'd only really just come in. So I came into rowing New Zealand at the end of 2011. So it was just before the Olympics. So I didn't really have that much to do with them. But after 2012, they moved over to Noel Donaldson, and that's when I became a little bit more involved. Yeah.
Interesting guy. I'm sure you've heard some stories about him.
Yeah, I've definitely, yeah.
Hey, this is going to be a great chat. 10 minutes in, and we've already dropped some heavyweight names. It's been awesome. Just one quick random question. So my podcast is sponsored by the Generate KiwiSaver scheme, who also sponsor Dame Lisa Carrington. They're obsessed with performance. So what is something in your life that you've obsessed over getting better at, and why did it matter so much to you?
Because I saw the advert to that. It's actually an AUT lab, isn't it? That's in.
It is.
That's in our lab. Yeah, that's in our exercise.
Rebranded as the Generate Performance Lab.
I recognise that looks surprisingly familiar. But what things have I obsessed over? I mean, I think I've obsessed over training generally, like the adaptation. I've always been very obsessed by why some people, you could give two athletes the same stimulus and one responds differently to another. And I mean, that was kind of what most of my research was in terms of my PhD. So that's something that I've always been quite obsessed with from a very early age.
And what's your relationship like with the word obsession? Because I asked that question to some podcast guests. Some podcast guests feel uncomfortable with that question because they say the word obsessed or obsession has some negative connotations. But from your experience, like to be like a peak performer, do you need a level of obsession?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I don't think I've ever met a peak performer who's not somewhat obsessed with their pursuit of what they're trying to get to. I really don't think it's possible. But I mean, it's obsessions. I mean, is there such thing as a healthy obsession? I don't know. Maybe. I would like to think it's a healthier obsession. But I do think that often those top performers can somewhat switch off when they need to, and then it's on and it's off. But there's always in the back of the mind where you always have to be on. And for an elite performer, unfortunately, that is the life that they lead, and that's because it comes down to nutrition, it comes down to sleep, it comes down to the training. So you can somewhat never be off, ever, really.
And it's
quite hard.
Yeah, and I suppose it's kind of a selfish pursuit, but it's only for a snapshot of your life, really, isn't it? Like a period.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
unless you're like you and you're still going in your middle age.
Yeah, I'm not a peak performer anymore. But I think that level of obsession is. And it is for that period of time, for sure. I mean, but it is definitely required. And I've never met an athlete who's at the top of their game who's not somewhat obsessed. And it's their life, it's their livelihood, and it's all they know. But I don't think they'd change it for any reason. It's just part of what they do, right?
Yeah, part of their DNA.
Yeah, and they enjoy it and they live it. So.
And your new. Maybe not an obsession, but a bizarre hobby is Hyrox, which you mentioned before. So for the uninitiated, what is Hyrox? How can you describe it?
Yeah, so Hyrox is, I mean, I guess people do liken it to CrossFit, but it's not like CrossFit at all. It's a more endurance-based sport. with exercise stations. So it involves 1 kilometer runs followed by an exercise station. So it'll be a 1 kilometer run and then a ski erg, 1 kilometer run, then 50 meters of sled push, 1 kilometer run, sled pull, and then basically 1 kilometer run, burpee, broad jumps, rowing, farmer's carry, walking lunges, and then wall balls. Yeah.
Wall balls.
Wall balls.
Yeah,
Wall balls
explain what that is.
Yeah,
It's a medicine ball.
Yeah, it's called a wall ball. So it's slightly different to a medicine ball. So it's a little bit bigger, but there are particular weights. So you have different weights, and there's different weights in Hyrox. So you have 4 kilos for the open women, I think it's 4 kilos. Yeah, and then there's 6 kilos for the open men and pro women, and then the pro men have a 9 kilo ball. And you've got to throw that ball up to a target that's 300 meters above the ground 100 times. But it has to be you have to do a full squat each time. So your hip has to go below your knee angle at every time you go down, and then you have to throw it up. And it's the last event. And it's really hard. Especially with 9 kilos. I can assure you of that, especially someone who's done triathlon all their life and has limited mobility in the upper thoracic and things like that. But it's it's good. I mean, I did triathlon since I was 9, and I kind of started off in like the Olympic programs, and then I moved into more of the longer distance. But it's just very, very time consuming. And so in 2022, I stopped competing, and then I took them sort of what now, and I kind of did almost bodybuilding for a little bit, and just wanted to get bigger and stronger. But I really missed that endurance aspect, and Hyrox gave this nice blend of strength and endurance, and it took out those really long training days, because if you're doing an Ironman, you've got to do like sometimes if you're training properly, you can be gone at 6 o'clock in the morning and get back at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. 5-hour rides, 1 hour run. It's just really long when I had a young family. So it's, especially now as they get older and there's a lot of activities, it becomes a little bit easier to do something that's a bit shorter. So.
Yeah, Ironman's crazy. I've always been impressed with the Cameron Browns of the world. But I'm even more impressed, I think, by people that have jobs and families and still manage to get it done outside of the regular commitments.
And more than that is that typically all the ones who have got jobs, they're not small jobs. Lots of the athletes doing Ironmans, they're all CEOs or they've got really big, important jobs, and they still manage to have a family, and it's quite impressive. Yeah.
So, do you wear a shirt when you do Hyrox?
No, of course not.
I've seen because I first heard about it maybe a year ago, 18 months ago. So I saw some videos on TikTok, and it looked like an audition for Love Island or something. Just buff people just running around exercising with their shirts off.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the vibe is with the shirt off stuff, but I'm going to be a part of the crowd. So,
Can anyone do it? So I run marathons, and you see a lot of people at the start line of a marathon, and it's super inspiring. There's a lot of people that maybe a year earlier were on the couch, and now they're having a crack at running 42 kilometres. The barrier for entry for Hyrox seems a little bit tougher to me.
No, I don't think so. I think it's quite low. I mean, the whole thing around the Hyrox is that the movements are quite simple. Unlike CrossFit, for example, it has very complex movements, some like Olympic lifts, and I can't do those, and most people can't. So I think the barrier to entry is quite low, because as long as you can learn some of the simple movements, and they are reasonably simple, pushing a sled, pulling a sled. I mean, there's even lots of the parents at my kids' schools are doing Hyrox. I'll go there and they'll start talking to me about Hyrox. I can't say that happened that much when I did Ironman. There weren't many people doing an Ironman at the school, but there's at least 3 or 4 or 5 people who I know are interested in Hyrox. I think it is quite easy.
Well, that's
it's
interesting.
Very popular.
Maybe it's my own internal perception, and I just feel intimidated because you've got all these gloriously hot people half naked.
I think it's anticipated that 1.6 million people will do Hyrox 2026. Compared to like 300,000 people will do probably long course triathlon.
What do you reckon? Is it going to last? Is it going to be a fad? You would have seen so many things come and go, right?
Yeah, who knows? I mean, they are having a big push because they want to get into the 2032 Olympics.
Wow.
Yeah. So if that happens, it's a whole different story. Obviously, it becomes a federation, it becomes a different sport. It won't be called Hyrox. But if that happens, then it will stick around, and then you'll get... you'll see the standard really jump up, because you'll get some really handy the standard's already jumped quite high because it's just been so popular, but I think it'll get even more popular, and then you'll see the standard jump even higher. So.
Well, if they can make breakdancing an Olympic sport.
Yeah, exactly. And I heard there's some kind of Ninja Warrior was going to be in the LA Olympics. So, yeah, who knows? Who knows? And I think like for 2032, which will be in Brisbane, it's a very popular hybrid. That kind of hybrid functional fitness is very popular with Australians. So, I think it does stand a reasonable chance. So.
How do you feel about aging? You're considered a veteran now, eh? Yeah. How do you feel about aging in terms of your performance? Like, are you seeing your times and your efforts decrease or not yet?
Not yet. Yeah.
Will you be okay with that when that happens?
No, I don't think anyone will be okay with that. I mean, I think it's just something you have to accept, isn't it? I mean, but fortunately, I haven't seen that yet. But
incredible.
It's not. Yeah, I mean, no one wants that to happen. I mean, my dad's like, my dad's 73, and he's as fit as a fiddle. Like, he'll ride 100k on his bike. No motor. Obviously, he will not take a battery on his bike. He's very stubborn. But
a purist.
But like two years ago, was it 2 years ago? We all went to the Italian Alps, and he cycled over the Stelvio. Have you heard of the Stelvio climb? Yeah. So he cycled over the Stelvio, down the other side, and back over it at 71.
Wow.
With no aid. So, I think I really believe like use it or lose it.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, if you the moment you stop, then it all becomes worse. And part of my reason for shifting from Ironman to Hyrox was because of aging. Because I don't feel that Ironman's a great sport to do as you age. I think having that a bit more muscle mass, a bit more size, a bit more strength, and that aerobic fitness is kind of the perfect combination of healthy aging. High VO2 max, good muscle size, good strength, and I felt that was quite important. So it really was a bit of a driving factor behind the change anyway, because I am very conscious about it. So yeah.
Oh, same here. I've become mild. I'm 53 now, so I've become mildly obsessed with it. And I read the Dr. Peter Attia book, Outlive, which is about basically sort of reverse engineering aging. And yeah, I'm huge on it now.
The 5 Horsemen.
Yeah. Actually, my mum is similar to your dad. Like she's 74, 75. Yep. I took her to Paris last year. I ran the marathon with her. Yep. I was pacing her through it. At hour 4, I was like, "Hey, Mum, we're going to need to, drop the walk breaks if you want to break 5 hours." And she was like, "Oh, if I can't break 5 hours, I'm going to give up. It's humiliating." I'm like, "Look, you're in your mid-70s. You're still running a fucking marathon."
Yeah. But when the World Championships was in Taupo, the World 70.3 Championships was in Taupo last year. And my dad did that. Yeah, I've got a great video because I had my son on the front of the bike, and so he's riding along, and we're going along the course, and my dad's riding, and my son goes to me, he goes, Granddad. And my dad's like, he goes, "Granddad." And he goes, "Why is everyone going past you?"
Oh, kids. So when was you did the Ironman, you got the age group world record. What year was this? 2022?
Yeah, that was 2022 for the fastest time, and then the age group record for Kona was in 2018, that 2022 one's been broken since. Right. I think a few people have broken it since, but the 2018 one still stands. So
you were the first ever amateur to break 8 hours in an Ironman, which is incredible. So for anyone that doesn't know, an Ironman is what? 3.8 swim?
3.8 swim, 180k bike, and a marathon run. Yeah, but it's a big shift.
So the swim's about an hour for you?
Yeah.
Because that's 50 minutes. It's your week discipline.
Yeah, it's about 50 minutes is what it takes me.
And then on the bike, you're doing like 40 kilometres an hour?
Yep.
Yeah. And then you get off the bike and you're running a marathon in
2:45 to 2:50 was my best, yeah. Right. So I think my best was like 4:30 is 40 kilometres an hour. My best is a 4:20 on the bike. Yeah.
Incredible. And that marathon is, I spent like maybe 5 years like dedicated training in order to break 3 hours. I did a 2:57, and you're routinely doing that after the big swim and the big bike.
Yeah, it's just funny. I was never, as I was saying off air before, I wasn't that great at running, but for some reason the Ironman running just clicked with me, and I was much better. Like when I did Olympic distance, my running was always my weakest, but I switched to Ironman, and it became my strength. It's a much better position to be in. I feel like now, I always had this, when I did Ironman, I was always like a little bit worse on the swim. I wasn't a bad swimmer, it was probably my worst, but I could always depend on myself on the run to pick off some places. Whereas now when I do Hyrox, I'm get to the wall balls and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, now I know people can't run feel.
But it's just doing that for 8 hours. You're going balls to the wall for 8 hours, aren't you? You're not fucking around at all.
You're not. You'll be surprised because you can't go balls to the wall for 8 hours. You have to. I mean, that's the thing. You have to be able to pace yourself, and you have to go at the correct intensity. So it's surprisingly not that difficult until the end. So like an Ironman, it actually feels really easy until about 15, 20k to go on the run. That's when it starts getting really hard. But you're never really at that higher intensity. You kind of always having to, because it's a very long day. So, you're eating, you're taking your fuel in, you're trying to keep your intensity back. I would sit on a bike at about 130 to 140 heart rate, for example, and my max heart rate's 170, 175. So I was always, but you just become very efficient and very aerobically fit. So you can, even at 130 heart rate, I could produce 270 watts on the bike. So that would be equivalent of me going 40 kilometers an hour. So it's all about efficiency and doing things. I always say, Ironman is not about going fast. It's about doing things as easily as you possibly can. So you've got to go fast. You've got to go fast, but easily. That's the trick.
That makes no sense. Like for anyone that's got a bike, that's got a speedo on, 40 k's an hour is gunning it. Yeah. And then to do 4 minute or sub 4 minute k's for a marathon after doing all that other stuff, it's flying. Yeah. Like it's you're downplaying it. You're making it sound very, very easy and achievable.
No, but it's not. It's definitely not easy. But I did triathlon since I was 9 as well. Yeah. So I had a lot of training experience and a lot of training age and. Triathlon's one of those sports that is very trainable. If you do the years and you do the consistency and you train, you'll get there eventually. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I always say that most athletes that overestimate what they can do in the short term and underestimate what they can do in the long term, and just by training consistently, you can do some pretty amazing things.
It's funny you said that's actually a Steve Jobs quote. Steve Jobs from Apple. Not talking about sport, but the quote is something like most people overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in 10.
Yeah, it was the same for sport, same in training. Yeah.
Another one of the athletes, you mentioned at the start, the high performers, choose your parents wisely. Yeah, have you got good genes? Was your dad competitive?
My dad was competitive, yeah.
Okay.
He wasn't brilliant, but he was an athlete. So there's a bit of a theory like epigenetics that you kind of pass on. The training that you do goes into your children, and so I'm hoping that my son's going to be a bit of a weapon, because my dad goes into me, then I train, then he goes to him, and maybe my daughter as well. We'll see. She's not showing the signs of being that competitive yet, but my son's pretty competitive.
How will you be devastated if your kids choose to be academics?
No, well, I'm an academic, so.
True. No, but a non-sporty academic.
No, they'll be what they'll be, won't they? So.
Another athlete you've trained that, Ironman fans listening to this will know this name, but others may not. Chelsea Sodaro.
Yes.
Who won an Ironman in Kona in 2022. First American, I think, to do so in 25 years. Yeah. And that was 18 months after having a baby.
Yeah.
So how did that work? Anyone that's listening to this or watching this that has, like a baby or a toddler in the house, they'll wonder how this is even possible. Like, how did that training cycle work? So she was obviously good and maybe had muscle memory when you started training with her?
Yeah, she did. She's from a very strong running background, and she started doing triathlon, and she was pretty good at triathlon straight away. I think she came 5th in the world half Ironman champs that year, and she came to me looking for a new coach. When she was 2 weeks pregnant. So obviously we had to go through the whole having the baby and then the return. But honestly...
so you coached her through her pregnancy?
Yeah.
How did that look in terms of the load you give her? Or did she sort of tell you what she was capable of in terms of how she was feeling?
It kind of merged quite seamlessly into... At the start, I was giving her quite good, a guided... regimented program, and she would follow that. But as time went on, she would have to miss. She had a lot of morning sickness, so we'd communicate, we'd swap things around, and we'd get through that sort of stages. But then eventually, obviously, she got bigger and bigger, and closer to giving birth, she started doing just what she can, which might be walking, a bit of swimming, and then slowly came back basically. So
how much fitness did she lose?
Not so much. Not how much fitness did she use in the actual terms of trying to put some statistics around it? I couldn't really say, but it didn't take her that long to be competitive again. 3 months later, she was at the start line of a reasonably big race, and then it was a year later that she then won Kona for the first time. So that was a bit of a surprise to both of us, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah, we didn't expect it. I don't think anyone expected it. So once the baby's been born, I suppose that's when the real training sort of starts again to prepare for this event. How does that look in real terms? In terms of sleep deprivation, breastfeeding. Yeah, well,
tiredness.
Yeah. I mean, it was. We had to do it in a very slow, gradual process, and eventually she was having a little bit of trouble with breastfeeding as well. So she was actually forced to stop. So, but. And then husband's obviously highly involved with helping, and gradually you have to do less and less. You can't do very much training at the start, but you have to be very systematic in the training that you do, and then over time you're just building on that, and eventually we're back to full training. But like the breastfeeding was really hard because it's just an energy. It literally drains nutrients, right? And when you're an athlete and you're trying to train, that's taking a lot of nutrients, and the breastfeeding is also taking a lot of nutrients. That's really hard for an athlete, and that was kind of quite tricky. So we had to really reduce the loads during that period. But the husband was great in helping at the night time, and they were a team, right? And I think the one thing that I've always found with elite athletes or any athlete is there's always a significant other who's fundamental in that one person achieving their goals. I can think of many examples like that. There's just not one.
Yeah, I'm just, when I was researching for this chat today, I was intrigued by that because my partner's girlfriend had a baby 8 months ago, and some days she's on the phone just like crying because it feels like her world's crushing down. So I can't imagine like training for an Ironman with everything else that's going on. It's remarkable, eh?
Yeah, she did amazing, and so she got. And I don't think she expected to win. We didn't expect to win, and it changed her life. So unfortunately, I'm not coaching her now, but it was some good successes, that's for sure.
Do you deal with weekend warriors or just pros and elites?
No, I do. I have a lot of weekend warriors. Yeah. So I have a triathlon coaching company, and there I deal with weekend warriors. Yeah. Most of them are, like I said, they're mostly high-level CEOs though, who are just real go-getters.
Super driven.
Yeah, super driven. Yeah, and they're all around the world. Morocco. US, you name it, Germany, they're all around. So very international.
Well, a couple of questions in relation to weekend warriors. What are your thoughts on Strava?
What are your thoughts on Strava? It's a great app for getting competitive.
Yeah.
Do you like a bit of Strava?
I love it, but I'm not sort of competitive at all. I've got and I can understand there's that ego aspect which is problematic for some people.
Yeah, I think it can be a nightmare because if you're chasing those segments all the time. I mean, I'm on Strava, but I don't really use it. My data goes in there, but I don't really follow and what's going on there. But a great app keeps people motivated, right? That's the main thing. Yeah, consistency is everything. If you can keep on going, if it gets you out the door, brilliant.
I mean, if I get a notification on my phone advising me that I've become a local legend, it feels good.
Because you've done the hill so many times. Yeah, exactly. Even better if you get a segment, though. Have you got any segments?
I don't know if I've got a segment yet. Interesting. I have to try and get a segment. Do you have to be fast to get the segment?
You've got to be pretty fast.
Okay.
I think you can get segments for that period. I mean, my dad's always trying to get segments in his age group. I think if you get like the advanced, like the paid version, it tells you in your age group. So you can get 70 plus. You get your 50 plus. You get your 50 plus segment over here, and
so I need to pay this up to get a segment.
You need to pay to get your age ranked segment.
Oh, that seems hollow.
Yeah.
What do you think about unqualified TikTok and Instagram influencers giving advice? What do you? Does that make you pull your hair out? Does it drive you crazy?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think the social media it's a real black box, isn't it? In terms of how you get to to the position to give the information, because like it doesn't seem to be. It can be anyone, right? So I think you got, especially in the world we live in today, it's a lot of information out there, and unfortunately, number of followers has more clout than credentials now. People will see, PhD, MD, whatever, or 100 followers, and then 1.1 million followers. Oh, that person knows what they're talking about, and that's the way it is, right? And I think that's the problem. So, but I mean, like one of the things that I really try to give reasonable information on, like, to people, like social media, and I'm really trying to do that more in 2026. But I'll always try and bring it back to some scientific study. I won't just state it. I'll try and give a reference. And I mean, it's the academic in me that just comes out. But I think that's important to me, at least, is having some kind of backing or scientific vigor.
But you do have the letters after your name, and also just the, I don't know, I suppose the CV to back up what you're saying, whereas a lot of people on Instagram do not.
No, and it's rife as well, isn't it? So
yeah. Okay, so let's go back and talk a bit about Dan Plews. First of all, how did you end up in the NZ?
Yeah, good question. So I was brought up in the UK, and I went to Loughborough University. Have you heard of Loughborough University?
No.
It's pretty big sports science university. It's probably the biggest in the UK. So I went there, did my undergraduate, did my master's at Leeds when Alistair Brownlee.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, when the Brownlee brothers were there. So Alistair,
incredible.
Yeah, I had a scholarship to do a master's there. So I was basically coaching the Leeds team as an assistant coach whilst doing a master's at the same time. And Alistair and Johnny, his brother, were both juniors at the time. And that year, Alistair went on to win the World Junior Championships. And that was the start of his trajectory to then winning the Olympics in London and whatnot. But from there, I got a job working in Singapore, basically as a triathlon coach. But after a short time, I moved and went to pure exercise physiology for the Singapore Sports Council. And then when I was there, I was doing distance learning for Edith Cowan University from Perth. And one of the lecturers from there was Professor Paul Lawson, who was just starting a new job being the head of physiology for high performance sport in New Zealand. So he moved over here, and he really wanted to bring me over to do a PhD. So he got a PhD scholarship under high performance sport in New Zealand. I got the PhD scholarship and came over initially to do a PhD, basically, under a scholarship, under what was called the Prime Minister's Scholarship with high performance sport in New Zealand. So,
did you ever consider becoming a professional athlete?
Yeah, I did, but I wasn't. Honestly, I didn't really find my. I was kind of better as I went into the Ironman. I always say that one of my biggest regrets is I probably switched to Ironman a little bit too late. I didn't really do my first Ironman until I was in my 30s, and it was by that time I was in the middle of my PhD, and so
because you were too busy studying in your 20s.
I just wasn't into it. I was into triathlon, but I wasn't into. I was very focused on the short distance, which I wasn't very good at.
Oh, you say you weren't very good at it. What was your 10K time?
33.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's not good enough, is it? You need to be 20. You need to be 29 minutes.
Yeah, compare it to like a Hayden Wilde standard exactly. or a Brownlee standard. Yeah, it's terrible.
It's terrible. Yeah, so
disgraceful.
Yeah, but so it is. Well, it's a long way of them. But then I kind of went. Then I went into the Ironman, and I was better at that. So maybe if I turned to Ironman quicker, perhaps I could have been a professional Ironman athlete. But who knows? But it's no regrets. I mean, I'm pleased the way things evolved, and I'm pleased that I had my time working with elite athletes and working in the Olympics. I always wanted to go to the Olympics, and I've been twice. So
yeah, who have you been with?
Yeah, just the rowing team for 2012 and 2016.
Awesome. So, yeah, what's that experience like? Do you feel nerves when you're over there as a coach / spectator? You've got some skin in the game.
Yeah, you have skin in the game. I don't think you feel as nervous as the coaches do. I think they have a lot of skin in the game, but there's definitely a little bit of nerves associated with it. And there were two really different experiences. Like I would say London was very different to Rio. London was a lot more grandiose and a lot more spectacular. Rio was a little bit different. It was half done. But and we didn't do as well. We did well, but not as well.
Yeah.
So, but there were two great experiences. I mean, at London I stayed and kind of went to the closing ceremony at London. At Rio I came home afterwards, but that was cool. I mean, I went to the closing ceremony of the Olympics, in the middle of the stadium and stuff, and that's I don't think many people could do that unless you're Olympian. So that was pretty special.
Do you think London felt special because it was your home country?
I don't think so. I mean, it was my first ever Olympics. I just think the event was so well put on. It was really, really good, and the village and all the logistics around it were just spectacular. So, yeah.
And your wife Kate, how did you guys meet? Is she a Kiwi or is she from the UK?
South African.
South African. Oh,
yeah. So we represent the Commonwealth in our house. We got English living in New Zealand, South African. We met for a mutual friend.
Yeah.
Yeah. So her brother's Grant Elliott.
Oh, the cricketer.
Yeah. Yeah.
The hairy jav.
The hairy jav. Yeah. Yeah. So there was a time when she was working for. When we first
met, the Breakers marketing.
Yeah, she did the Breakers marketing, and I was at rowing, and so we had kind of a lot of New Zealand sport going on in the house.
Wow, that is a lot.
Yeah.
So when was your last Ironman?
2023. 2023.
Wow, and you're done.
Yeah.
Have you got the calf tattoo?
No. Never.
You're wearing an Ironman watch right now.
Yeah, but I could take this off.
Why not the tattoo?
No, I'm not a tattoo type of.
Right.
It's funny. Speaking of tattoos, I had shockwave therapy because I've got this plantar fasciitis at the moment. So I had shockwave therapy the other week, and the guy who was doing the therapy, he goes to me, "Have you ever had a tattoo?" And I went, "No." And he went, "Oh, that's unusual." And I said, "Why is that?" I said, "Because if you can take this, you could take having a tattoo." And I was like, "Oh, that's not. You're not selling this to me." Yeah.
Yeah. So this injury you've got at the moment, you were telling me about this before we came into record mode. It's holding you back from doing Hyrox at the moment, and it's the most underwhelming injury imaginable.
Yeah. Well,
in terms of how it occurred.
Yeah. Trying to dig holes in the sand with your heels as hard as you can with your kids on the beach, but I don't think that was I think that was kind of the start of it, but I don't think it was if it was the running on top of it that just exacerbated it. So I think I'll be able to. I think I'm supposed to be racing this weekend, and I think I'll hopefully make the start line. So we'll strap it up, hope for the best, take some painkillers.
In terms of the Ironman events you've done. What, if anything, have you learned from those things that you could never learn in a lab or a lecture?
Oh, that's a
I suppose it's more a psychological question than anything.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I always tell people with Ironman is that those long days is that you always have to go through the ebbs and flows, and I think that's life, right? Is that you always go for ups and downs, and in an Ironman you have periods of that you feel terrible, but you also have periods where you feel okay or better. And like over the course of a marathon, I mean, you'll know this from running a marathon, sometimes you feel terrible and then you kind of get through it. And I think that's one of the things that you can't learn other than when you do it, is that you learn to always stay positive and never lose your head, and you could always come out the other side of it, and things it's such a long day. And I've had races where, in fact, it was Ironman New Zealand, the first time I won the age group overall there, my pedal fell off on my bike. So literally it fell off and I couldn't ride. So I had to wait for the mechanic, and I lost about 10 minutes. And but I just kept on going, and I ended up catching the leader with about 2K to go on the last bit of the run. But that kind of mindset of not thinking it's over until it's over is really something that is really important, especially for those long days where you're really going after, where you just 8 hours is a long time. And if someone cracks in an Ironman, they really go. You could, if you're like 10 minutes behind and they start walking in the last 10K, which can happen, you can catch them.
Yeah.
So it's not like in many other those shorter events,
Have you ever ignored your own advice in an event and paid the price for it?
In an event, have I? I've definitely ignored my own advice in training.
Was it deliberate, like trial and error? I think one of the greatest but probably less known New Zealand coaches ever is Arthur Lydiard, who kind of invented running, and he used to. This is very unscientific, but he used to train on himself, and I think some weeks he'd get up to like 300 kilometres, just work out what the optimum amount was. Is that so like you in training? You're just trying things out?
Yeah, I definitely do a lot of that. But I try different sessions on myself. I can't say I've tried to push myself to the limit and but I've done lots of things where it's, is that session achievable? Whether it's like 8 by 3 minutes at a certain watch where you do certain different things, and I'll always try these things on myself before I kind of give them out. And generally, I have come unstuck a few times where it's been a little bit too hard. Get halfway through and say, that's not happening. Yeah.
I heard you in another podcast that I was listening to talk about the 3 things theory, which I really liked. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I think I do. The three things you can have in life, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the philosophy is, the 3 things is that I don't know, it wasn't my idea. Someone taught me this, by the way.
It's the first time I'd heard it, so I'm crediting you, and I loved it.
Yeah, is that if you want to do well in anything in life, you can probably focus on 3 things, but if you do 4, you're not going to do well at anything. And that might be like family, business, and training. But that means you're not going to have any time for your friends. If you want to do family, business, and work and friends and social life, you just can't achieve what you're actually trying to achieve. And I think that's very true. And to an extent now is that I sound like I don't really have much of a social life, but my social life, I try and bring it into my training. So that means that my friends would come around and do the sessions with me, or cycling with your friends. And that's the 3 things theory. And I really believe it's a strong one, and it's true.
Well, you talked earlier about some of the bike rides and conversations you have with like Gordy Walker.
Yeah.
So that sort of ticks the
box.
It's not everyone's idea of socialising,
but it's a double box. It ticks the box twice, because I can't. I mean, there's no way I'm going to go out and have a beer or go for a coffee. I just I can't fit that in, but I have to do that training. So if you can bring those 2 things together, it's even better. So,
these results that you've got in Ironman, what sort of cost did it come to you in terms of sacrifices?
Well, I mean, I would say, I haven't really had any costs. As of so but I think I always have tried to. I've always been a real goal setter, and like I'm very stubborn with when I have a goal in mind. So when I raced Kona in 2015 for the first time, and I was 6th in my age group, but I did it at the time, and I remember calling my dad, and I was like, I could definitely win that one day, And then, and I had a really wanted to win in 2017, and I wanted to go there, but Kate got pregnant. And Bella was actually born the day of the race in 2017. So I qualified for Kona, but we realized that the Bella was due on that time, so we put it to one side and didn't go that year. But then I requalified in 2018, and then we had an agreement that I was going to really focus to get to 2018, and thankfully I achieved that goal. But I think the cost would come if I hadn't achieved that goal, because it's so much work. And in all honesty, it's quite strange, because by that point there, I had finished my PhD. I had a number of publications in the area of exercise physiology. I was coaching Terenzo Bozzone, who you might.
Oh, I love T.
Yeah. So I was coaching T, and I was coaching a number of other pro triathletes. So I had quite a good coaching background. And Terenzo was flying then as well. He was going super well. That was a year. That year he came 7th in Kona, his best ever Kona, and he went on that slew, won Ironman New Zealand, went on the slew of races. But it wasn't until I did what I did in 2018 that I ever got any notice from the triathlon world, really. And so it made a massive difference. So if that hadn't happened, maybe it would have been a sacrifice.
Yeah.
But then after that, I shut that down, and then I wasn't really focusing. I finished my PhD, so that was I was really focused on my PhD. Then I really focused on Ironman. Finished the Ironman. I really focused on building some of the businesses I have now. And then once they were established, I decided that I'd really focus on trying to break 8 hours for an Ironman. So then I switched. So I think like that's what you have to kind of, switch your focus from one thing to another. And there is that 3-thing rule, but within that 3-thing rule, you've always got one that's kind of your North Star at the time. Like the North Star might be your business, the North Star might be your family, the North Star might be your training. So that's kind of how...
So like a 40%, 30%, 30%.
Yeah, exactly. And I think they vary from certain times, and even like through the year. You might do a triathlon, or you might have a race, and then it'll shift. Those three things would shift, and that's the way I would try and get those goals set, and then you shift throughout the year and achieve what you want to achieve. So.
What did set the scene for us. What did a difficult training week look like in order to get those results?
I was a very consistent trainer, so I think that's the way people should always train, is that everything comes back to consistency. So you don't want to have weeks that are too difficult. So my hardest weeks were never crazy hard, but they were still, I was very consistent leading into like some of my best races. For example, I do 21 hours of training for 21 weeks. That was my average leading into like Kona in 2018. I did 21 hours for 21 weeks. I just remember that very specifically.
That doesn't seem too bad. That works out to be 3 hours a day.
Yeah, not too bad. But over 21 weeks, it's consistent. Right? Yeah. So I would typically do 2 to 3 sessions a day. Swim. Monday I'd swim, bike, run. Tuesday I'd do a longer ride. Wednesday I'd swim and run. Thursday I'd do like a bike and a run. Fridays I'd take easy. Then I'd have reasonable like big weekends. Whereas Saturday might be 4 or 5 hours, sometimes 6 hours of bike run, and then long run on a Sunday.
Were you permanently tired for 21 weeks?
Yeah, definitely. I was permanently tired, and I think that's one of the things about that I've learned from moving from Ironman to Hyrox, is that the Ironman training is very draining compared to Hyrox. It's not as tiring. It's more intense, but it's shorter. Whereas if you do a 5-hour ride and a 1-hour run, you're good for nothing. And I think that almost affects your parenting a little bit and everything else, because you're just so tired.
You can be present, but it doesn't mean you're being a great parent.
And that's good. I mean, it's fine when your children are under 1, but once they get to 6 and 8, it becomes tricky, right? Because they demand your attention and they demand your energy. So
to do 3 workouts a day, what time are you getting up in the morning?
5, generally.
Oh. And in bed by
9:30.
Yeah, 'cause you must be more aware than anyone about the importance of sleep.
Yeah, 3 pillars of recovery is sleep, nutrition, and training periodization.
Yeah. So what's your usual sort of sleep routine?
I generally have 7 hours of sleep, 8 hours in bed.
Yeah.
And so kind of how I roll with it.
Do you wear like a ring or a watch or anything? Do you fixate on your sleep and how much deep sleep you're getting? And
yeah, I mean, I have an Oura ring and I wear a Whoop at the same time. So yeah, I haven't got my Whoop on now, but I do have them both. But I don't get too fixated on it. I mean, my PhD was in heart rate variability, so I'm more obsessed with that than I am with the sleep. But generally, those sleep metrics, they're great for your number of hours and how much you're sleeping and maybe your efficiency score, but they're not very good for the deep sleep and the slow wave sleep. So I don't take too much notice of those numbers.
Yeah, heart rate variability, HRV. I was listening to a podcast on my run yesterday morning that you did with Art Green a few years ago.
Oh,
and
right,
it was like an hour of you guys talking about HRV.
Oh, was it?
You were getting right in the weeds.
Yeah.
So briefly, what does that mean? You did a whole PhD on the thing. What does it mean?
Just finished a book on it too.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, so if you want a good snooze fest and
is it going to be published?
Yeah, Human Kinetics. Yeah, so it's with one of 4 authors. It should be out in spring of the Europe time, so April time here.
Oh, I'll plug it. Yeah. Like who should get it? What will we get from it?
Well, it's for anyone who, because it's got a variety of things. It's got training. It's got psychological. So we're 4 authors. We cover like some mental training and it's kind of the cognitive side of things, and then we also cover the exercise physiology. So me and my co-author Marco Altini, we do the physiology side, and then Sylviane Lombardi and Emma Mosley are doing the psychology. So I didn't know much about the psychology of HRV, but it's fascinating how different personalities have different HRV traits and how your ability to cope with emotional stress and how you can train your mind to cope with more emotional stress and affect your HRV. That area is fascinating. My area was always in training side, like how you adapt to training and if you're recovering well, you're not recovering well, if you can do more training, if you can do less training. So, but yeah, to answer the question on HRV, it's HRV is heart rate variability. And as we sit here right now, our heart rate might be 60, but it doesn't mean that each gap between each beat is a second. What happens is that gap varies the gap between beats is always varying. So it might go from 1,000 milliseconds to 600 milliseconds. And that gap, the variation in that gap is what heart rate variability is. So you're measuring that gap and how much it changes. And the reason it's important is because more variation is linked to your what we call the parasympathetic side, so your rest and digest, your kind of recovery state. And then the less variation is linked to your sympathetic side, which is the fight or flight, your more stressed state. So, if I'm quite nervous for this podcast interview, I'll be a bit more sympathetic. If I'm nice and relaxed, I'll be more parasympathetic. And we know that you're more adaptive to training when your parasympathetic system is high. You can cope with more training. So if you try and overflow yourself with high stress training at a time when you're already stressed, your adaptation to that process is less. So it's almost like flogging a dead horse. It's similar aspect to that kind of methodology.
Amazing. What's the title of the book?
HRV for High Variability, Science and Practices, or something like that. It's a really boring one.
You're gonna stop talking it down. I think this is very much.
It's a great book. The title may sound academic, but we've made it. It's quite chatty compared. I publish a lot of papers in academic journals. It's not like that. It's very extensive and it covers. The good thing about heart variability is you wouldn't believe the crossover to everything. Aging, like we've already talked about. You really, as you age, the more you can maintain higher and stable HRV, the better your longevity, the better your health, the better your well-being. And that's why these metrics like Whoop, Oura Rings are becoming so popular, because they are able to track well-being really, really, really well.
How important is diet to you? Like day to day, what does your diet look like? Diet's really important to me, and I'm very strict about it. I guess I wouldn't say strict, but I'm very strict on my food sources more. When I was doing Ironman, I was quite well known for following more of a low carb approach to my diet. I'm not so much like that with Hyrox because it's not as important for that type of sport. But still, now I'm still. I prioritize my proteins and I'm prioritize the food source, making sure it's organic and whole food, and they're kind of the main focuses I put on diet now. But I think what I tell athletes is the most important bit is the protein part. Is that you get? You had Mickey on, right? So Mickey would say the same. So get the protein part right. Make sure that's your big rocks, and then the fats and carbohydrates part. It doesn't really matter that much. It's dependent on what your nutritional goals are and what sport you're doing and that podcast I was talking about before that you did with Art Green, you and him were broing out about talking about doing a raw liver diet.
Yeah,
together.
we did. We tried it. Yeah, we just were trying an experiment.
It sounds awful. Yeah,
it was actually quite good though. I felt really good on that. It was. So we were doing. It was a kind of a modified carnivore diet where we were allowing a bit of fruit at the same time. And I have to say, I did feel good on it, but we were eating raw liver as a result of it. It wasn't as bad as it sounds.
You say you felt good on it. Is it possible that part of that is placebo or no?
No, of course. The placebo is a real thing, but it. I used to drink. I wouldn't say I drank a lot, but I did drink a little bit of alcohol now and again. Maybe 1 or 2 glasses of wine with dinner a week, but. During that, I stopped completely, and I haven't since. I stopped. Wow. Because I just saw the effect it had. Yeah. So, it's a massive lever. People talk about having cheat meals and stuff. If you were having like a cheat meal, what would you have? When was the last time you went to a KFC? I wouldn't even know.
You look disgusted.
Yeah, I couldn't actually answer the question. I don't think I've been in years. Absolutely, I haven't done a fast food in years. I sound boring, don't I? But
no. It's fascinating. Look at you. You're fit. You're healthy. Academically, you've done some crazy stuff. Athletically, you've done some crazy stuff. So I'm just intrigued and I'm kind of inspired.
I haven't been in a very long time. But we try and we just try and keep it at home. My wife's amazing with the way she brings the food and collects the food. Like for example, she makes Greek yogurt out of milk herself. So we have this like raw Greek yogurt to eat at home, and it's like, high in protein and great for the kids. And
how do you avoid McDonald's when you've got kids? There's marketing and stuff.
Yeah,
and
they've never been. Yeah,
all it's going to take is a visit to a friend's house, and they get a nugget.
So far, we've avoided it. But I've kind of like indoctrinated in them that it's not good for them. So when they see it, they're like, "Oh, Daddy!" It's like, yes. We were at the beach the other day, and one of the parents came over, and he says, "Oh, I think my kids should hang out with your kids a bit more." I says, "Why is that?" I says, "Well, they were just over at the ice cream van, and Jake, who's 6, he goes, 'Oh yeah, that's got seed oils in it.'" So I was like, probably it's not correct, but at least he's thinking on the right lines.
Okay, well, if you could only eat the same meal over and over again every day, what would your plates look like?
Ooh, steak and it'd have to be a steak. Yeah, a steak and a salad with sweet potato or something.
Yeah. So you can have 3 different things. Because I can eat clean, but I can eat very boring as well. Like if you told me what the right things to eat were, for health and performance and everything else, I could have the same thing meal after meal. So for breakfast, what would you have?
For breakfast,
every day for the rest of your life.
Can I have different things in this? Can I have different things in there, or is it just one thing?
There's no rules.
There's no rules. Okay. So if I had to have one breakfast, I would have like Greek yogurt with protein powder and a banana in there. That's what I would have. I mean, it's pretty whole. I mean, protein powder, Greek yogurt, fats. Yep, that's what I'd go for.
Would that be filling enough?
Yeah,
with the protein powder.
Yeah, with the protein powder. Yeah.
Okay. And what about lunch?
Eggs on some sort of paleo toast. Yeah, fried eggs. Yeah, it's not bad though. I don't mind it. Like a gluten-free, lower carbohydrate. That's what I'd have.
Are you eggs every day?
Yeah.
How many?
At least 3.
Right.
Minimum of 3. So we in our street we have a lady over the road who has her own chickens, and she kind of gives the chickens out.
You're an egg dealer.
Yeah, she deals the eggs around the street, and so. But we're always we're the highest egg consumer in the street, and I'm like, street, are you making sure that we're getting I want to make sure that we're the highest egg consumers in the street. Are we still the highest egg consumers? And we are. Yeah.
It's very confusing though, isn't it? Because I'm sure there was a period in my life where eggs were bad.
There was, for sure. Yeah, but there's no more whole food now. I mean, it's well known that it's not that way anymore. I think that was all the saturated fat hypothesis, and that's been well debunked now.
So. What about dinner?
Steak and salad.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
They all sound like great meals.
Yeah, I love a steak and salad though.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I could have that every day, every single day, for sure. Easy. The steak and salad, maybe with a bit of like sweet potato, like a sweet potato chips as well, something like that. Homemade mayonnaise, we do that at home. So,
what about like evening snacks? Do you always have some Whittaker's chocolate in the freezer? Or?
Yeah, generally. Yeah,
do
like
you?
Some, but 92%. If you know the 92% Whittaker's.
No, what's that?
Like really dark.
Right.
Really dark, yeah. So 92%. Most people would think it's disgusting, to be honest. But I don't mind it. I think it's quite good. Yeah.
This is great.
Another one that I like is a cereal called Wonder Crunch. Have you heard of that?
No.
Yeah, so Wonder Crunch cereal. Anyone should get. I think it's awesome. And my kids love it too. So it's a high protein cereal. It's got 20 grams of protein per serve, because most cereals just like cardboard, right? It's just all carbohydrates, nothing in it, no protein. But this is the high protein cereal called Wonder Crunch, and it has 20 grams per serve. So sometimes if you want to get like a bit of a protein hit, prioritize your protein. Good way to have that at night too. Sometimes.
What do your kids eat for breakfast? It's hard with cereals, eh?
Yeah, I mean they have cereals once a week, but they have like the Wonder Crunch. But it is hard with they typically will have some kind of like egg, like fried egg or something like that. But they do get they sometimes get the egg ache for a while. So then they just go off them, and then you're like stuck. But But
Hey, what happens when you take the kids to the grocery store? Because they sort of have the Kellogg's section at sort of eye level for kids, and there's the bright colours with Fruit Loops.
We don't really take them. No, we don't. They just don't go. But
it's probably smart.
Yeah. I don't think we've. I think they obviously have been, but not very often. And generally, we go to we go in the daytime without them. I mean, who wants to take kids to a grocery store, really? Oh,
well, there's a lot of temptation as well.
Yeah.
Like, God, how many toddlers do you see having a tantrum because they can't have a Kinder Surprise or whatever it is?
Yeah, well, it's a kid's sport as well. My kids do a lot of different activities, and after activities, often the lollies will come out, and they just a nightmare. Tantrums all around.
Oh, just the sugar hit.
Yeah, just all fighting over the lollies, or it's just crazy.
Hey, this has been great. I got a couple of sections here. I've got one section called High Performers, and then one question called one card called Questions for Everyone, which is just more towards the weekend warrior, I guess.
Okay.
So I'm keen to pick your brains.
Yep.
First of all, high performance. What is one word that defines world-class athletes?
Consistency.
That's a great answer. It's so boring, but it's a great answer.
Yeah. But that is everything. It's all about. That's what I think is anyone who's listening or watching this and they want to achieve anything, you have to pick something that you can do consistently, and that's like we were talking about before with your Kepler aspirations, including, that's what I said, including cycling. It will allow you to be more consistent with your training because you won't get as injured. You'll do more training. You get that consistent cardiovascular hit, and that's the most important aspect. And that's with anything. So if you're looking at a diet, if you're choosing a fasting mimicking diet or a vegan diet or a carnivore diet or a keto diet or whatever it might be, you just got to pick the one that you can do as consistently as you possibly can, and that's going to always lead to your best results for everything.
Something I heard you talking about on another podcast is something that you've sort of stolen or borrowed from the All Blacks, and in particular it's in the James Kerr book Legacy, which is a great book.
Yeah.
And he talks about the no dickhead policy.
Yes.
And this is something that you've implemented, maybe not on the record, but off the record or under the surface with your clients. What does that mean for you?
Well, I mean, I have a lot of athletes who ask me to coach them, and the first thing I always do is I just interview them. Well, I don't want to say interview, but we have a chat, and then it's whether I like them or not. And I don't. And often they'll come to me and they'll give me their results, and they'll say, I'm fast at this and I can do this, and I really don't care that much, really, because if I'm working with someone, I much prefer that they're a good person, and I get on with them, and they have good values, because they're the people who you want to, because you enjoy working with those sorts of people. And that's always been my philosophy, is that I'd sooner take the person who's just nice to be around. I mean, I went on a camp with some athletes to Kona, not last year, the year before, and they were just 4 of my one-on-one weekend warrior athletes, and we had just the best time, and they all got along, and that's what I live for. It's so good, so amazing when you can have those sorts of those people, and they're also inspirational. I had one guy who was he's a pediatric dentist who owns multiple pediatric dentist places around the US, and the one he owns a unicorn startup in the US, and they're just they're inspirational, but they're all just so awesome at the same time, and they're sort of people who I like to work with. Yeah.
It's interesting, just thinking about it now, because it's obviously you don't want to be with anyone that's cocky or arrogant or a dickhead, but yet to be a one percenter, I suppose you do need a huge amount of self-confidence or self-belief, and there can be a fine line between that and arrogance.
Yeah, what's the word is I think there's a difference between ego and self-confidence. So ego is when you think you're better than other people. Self-confidence is when you believe in yourself. And I think there's a high degree of self-confidence, and that's true, but they don't think that they're better than other people. And that's the difference, is that you can have those athletes that have a high ego and they think, that something's beneath them or they're better than other people, but all athletes have a high degree of self-confidence for sure. And I think anyone who achieves anything has a high degree of self-confidence. So, and they're the sorts of people who you want, but you don't want the ones with the big egos.
That's a great. Can you repeat that line again? I think it's worth repeating. I've never heard that before.
The difference between ego and self-confidence. So an ego is somebody who generally believes that they're better than another person, whereas a self-confident person is a person who has a lot of confidence in their own ability. So, and that self-confidence comes from their training, from the things that they've done, but they don't necessarily think that because of that they're better than that next person. They still believe that the people next to them are a threat, and they still believe that they're worthy people.
Shit, that's so good. What makes a great coach-athlete relationship truly effective at the highest level?
Years. It goes back to consistency, doesn't it? But I think like the best coach-athletes relationships are the ones that have been going for a very, very long time. Lisa and Gordy, prime example. Like they're athletes who have been together for a very long time. Michael Phelps, his coach, I think it's Bob Bowness. They were together for his entire career. But it's those long relationships that make good athletes and coaches. And the main reason that is because then they build this amazing like communication of like knowing without knowing, without having to tell, without having to say what's going on. They kind of can read each other really well, and that's when the best relationships come about. Yeah.
I don't know if you know Craig Kirkwood or Hayden Wilde.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
So they had a long-term. I've actually got an episode recorded with Craig, which will probably be out before this one.
Yeah.
But they had a long relationship, and they sort of parted ways, not on any bad terms or anything, but just because Hayden wanted to explore if there's another, I suppose, level to the game.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think about something like that? Is that a reasonable thing? Is that understandable? An athlete at that level?
I do think I think all coaches and athletes, they'll always run their course. Right, and who? Yeah, I mean, I
suppose you never know if it's the right move.
You never know it's the right move, and who knows? I mean, Hayden's been going okay, right, since, but he's not done as well in the Olympic distance, but he's been crushing the T100s. So, I mean, Hayden's actually in Browns Bay at the moment, staying there. So he just messaged me yesterday, in fact.
Did it want to go out for a run or a ride?
He was trying to persuade me. I think he was trying to get me to go out riding, but not quite ready. I'm not quite ready for that.
He's a savage, eh? Like I had him on the podcast real early on the piece, and he sent me a voice note while he was out mountain biking.
Yeah,
and just about had paused like halfway through the voice note because he was riding over a tree trunk or something.
Yeah.
He's just like just type 2 fun all day every day.
Yeah. He loves it. I mean, he's someone who just enjoys the process, right? He loves getting out there and training. So, but yeah, I mean, Craig's having now amazing success with Sam Ruth, right? So, I'm sure he's got his hands full with that as well.
Oh my God, yeah! To timestamp this conversation, just the weekend before, Sam Ruth did like a 3:53 mile at the age of 16. What the fuck is he? He's likely to be New Zealand's best middle distance runner ever, right?
You'd hope so. I mean, if he stays injury free and consistent with his training, he will definitely be. Yeah, really. I mean,
well, since you know Hayden, what would you like to see him do beyond triathlon? Like,
he's got to do Kona. Yeah. He has to do the Ironman World Championship. So I'd love to see him do that.
He's a great runner, eh? Like, fantastic runner.
Incredible. Yeah, so easy as well. It just looks effortless. Some of the things he sends me some of his training that he does, and I'm just like, wow, it's like his next level. It really is next
More
level.
Than 21 hours a week? For 21 weeks?
21 hours a week. Yeah.
But he's never sitting still anyway, is he?
No, he's always on it. He loves it.
When do you push and when do you protect an athlete from themselves?
I think career-wise, when I look at an athlete, I'll always look at their career and where they are in their trajectory of their career. So younger athletes need a push, older athletes need a pull back. So generally, in my experience, a younger athlete, they don't really have that capacity or that knowledge to truly know where they can go to, and they'll often need a bit of a push. Whereas if you have an older athlete who's like been in the game for a long time, and say I'll just think of Gordy and Lisa, for example. If Lisa came to Gordy and she says, "Oh, I'm feeling really tired today," he would definitely listen, because that Lisa would not say that unless she really meant it. Whereas a younger athlete who might say they're a bit tired, like, this is part of the process you need to kind of go through. So I think there's a lot of that. But I think generally, like fatigue and tiredness, you can push it, provided where it is in the training cycle, especially if you've got a recovery period going up. But injuries and niggles, then you don't push those, right? Because they can get worse, And I always think that when I've felt very tired for many sessions, and I have never ever regretted. When your motivation is low to train, I've never regretted doing a session, and you know that. If you don't feel like running, if you go out and do that run, have you ever regretted doing that run?
Never.
Exactly.
You always feel better at the completion.
You always feel better after it. So generally, you can always get through it. The only time you'd regret is if you had a calf strain and you felt a bit tight and you weren't sure and you tore it during. Then you'd have regret. But generally, if you don't feel like doing it and you feel fine, you never regret it. And I think that's what. So I think it's always you can always do a little bit more than you realise. It's hard to overtrain, very hard.
A lot of the wisdom you were talking about does come with age, though. Like in your 20s, were you a pain is weakness leaving my body kind of guy?
I mean, I think I had when I was younger. Have you heard of Paul Amy?
No.
So Paul Amy was he was a Kiwi. He moved over to the UK, and he came second at the World Triathlon Championships for New Zealand in 1998. And he beat Hamish Carter, for example.
Wow.
So he was that level.
Yeah, Hamish Carter won the gold medal at 2000.
Yeah, exactly. So he's super. But he moved over to the UK, and he started training at our centre in Loughborough. And I was assigned to him as his training partner, and that was the one time I did become very really tired, very overtrained, because I was trying to train with him all the time. But that was, I think that was in my 20s, and I definitely pushed a little bit too much. But that wasn't through intensity, it was just through volume. It's like that term overtraining, it's used so flippantly, and I really don't like it. It's a terrible term, because it's very suggestive that overtraining is the reason why someone's fatigued. And I can tell you 9 times out of 10 it's never the training, it's always something else. It's life stress, not enough sleep, poor nutrition. Because if that same person did the same training again with different things around them or different loads around them, they wouldn't have the same outcome. So I think that's where the outside stuff becomes super important.
That's so interesting. So when you start working with someone that's already like at the top of their game or a world champion, how do you earn or build their trust?
So I mean, do you know what? Like, I was thinking about this because when I went to rowing, for example, I feel like I got quite a lot of trust quite quickly. And I do,
even though it's a sport you don't.
Even though it's a sport I'd never really been that involved in. I did a little bit of rowing when I was in Singapore, but I think if you are an athlete yourself around athletes, it is a lot easier. If they know that you've done some kind of athletic endeavor yourself and you have trained to a degree, you kind of get that process. It definitely is of benefit. And I would I go out riding with Emma Twigg and I go out riding with Mahe Drysdale, and you build that relationship just from riding bikes with them, and I think that's that it's kind of it's easier to build that level of trust. But like, to answer the question, when I've taken on athletes who are of that high level in the past, for example, I coached Javier Gomez.
Oh, yep.
You know Javier Gomez?
Triathlete, yeah.
Yeah. So I coached him. Yeah, so he's legend, so 9 times world champion. So I coached him towards the back end of his career. And, when he came in, it didn't change that much. I looked at his past training, I looked at his typical run volume, I looked at his typical training intensity distribution and what he did, and I added a few little differences, but you don't want to change that much, because things that work. Small iterations. And even when I look at some of the best performers that I've worked with in New Zealand, if you look at their training year on year, it doesn't change much. It's pretty mundane and it's pretty similar. It's very repeatable, and they're doing the same thing year in, year out. But it's just really small tweaks, an extra, a little bit less recovery here, an extra little bit of rep duration there, a little bit more volume, slightly longer in a high intensity week. But for the most part, it stays the same, because it's a formula that works.
Yeah, I suppose that there's not a lot of coaches that are going training with these high performance athletes.
No,
so that's a good way to earn trust as well, I guess.
Yeah, it helps. And I've had some of the questions I've had on other podcasts was, What do I think when I do these training programs? What do I think? But I really think that when I write a training program, I can really feel it. And it sounds strange. I can feel, if I'm writing it, I can feel the day and what it feels like. And so I'll be like, oh yeah, if I'm doing that on that day, and then wake up the next morning and I've written a session, I can almost feel what that session is going to feel like, and I'll sometimes change it because I have this feeling, and I don't think you'd get that unless you've done it yourself.
It's almost like an element of empathy in a way.
Yeah, to a degree, but you could feel the fatigue, you can feel how it feels, and then it really helps with, I mean, obviously I've got the scientific background, but that kind of part is very helpful for me.
You mentioned Emma Twigg before. She's won back-to-back Olympic golds. Were you working with her before that, before she won the gold?
I worked very closely with Emma in 2015 when she won the World Championships in Amsterdam.
Right.
Yeah, and a coach. So, yeah, she was good fun.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't had her on the podcast yet. I'd love to have her on though. Like, it's incredible what she's done, and I just wonder what kept her going. Like after Olympic disappointment, before winning back-to-back golds.
She'd be a great interview to have. You know what I mean?
Like, that's adversity right there.
Yeah, massive disappointment because I mean, bronze. I mean, I was with her in Rio, and she was obviously gutted. So.
Yeah, so she won a bronze there.
She got not bronze. Sorry, she got fourth.
Fourth, yeah.
Yeah, and she got fourth in London, fourth in Rio, and then she came back.
It's incredible, eh? Like, why didn't she give up?
Because she knew I think it's that self-belief, right?
Yeah.
She knew what she was capable of. It comes back to that ego versus belief. She's not someone with an ego, but she has a strong belief in what she can do. But
4 years is such a long time to wait to prove yourself.
Very long time.
Well, the opportunity to prove
it was more than that because of COVID, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was 5 years.
It's 5 years, yeah.
What's the biggest mistake you see smart, motivated, world-class athletes make?
Biggest mistake? I think like sometimes they change things too frequently, change the support team, change the coaches, and so when I think world-class athletes often, when things are going wrong, they kind of, the worst ones, the best ones will look in the mirror, the worst ones will look through the window and look outside and then blame other people for their poor performances, whereas I think the best ones will always look at themselves and try and change things, whereas the worst will look outward, think, oh, my psychology isn't right, my training routine's wrong, my nutrition's wrong, and they start changing everything. And that's the recipe for disaster, because they're often a world-class performer because of the things they've done to get there.
Yeah.
And small things don't make small things like that can often unravel them completely.
Yeah, it's kind of like don't throw out the baby with the bathwater.
Yep.
And maybe you hear some of these books talking about the 1%ers and stuff, but I suppose you got to, as you mentioned before, like the big rock analogy. You got to focus on the big rocks before you focus on the.
But those athletes are really good at the 1%ers.
Yeah.
But they're looking at those. They're the small things within their own, like a bike position or a helmet. That's what I think of 1%ers. But those other parts are so important to keep consistent, because they take. I mean, especially those relationships, they take time to build, and you're starting from scratch again.
So for you these days, what does a great day look like? What's a great day?
A great day would be a bit of training, time with my family, and bit of work, to be honest. I know I really enjoy my work, so I really enjoy it. I like
you spend so much of your life working, eh? You got to love it. You have to love it.
Yeah, I love it. Like, I don't like people. I was at had my son at athletics, and I was talking to one of the dads about did we had time off, and it's back to work, and said, did you? And I said, no, well, I didn't really take any time off because I can't not do my work. I really enjoy, and it's quite diverse as well. I do a lot of different stuff, so it's all in the sports realm, but there's lots of different things that I do get involved in, so it's always exciting. I mean, I was at last week I was at the Sydney Swans, for example.
Wow.
Doing some work with them, and it's just, and then I was at the Gold Coast Suns AFL team after that, and it's just cool. It's really good, and I really enjoy my work, so I can't complain with that. If I can get those three things done, brilliant.
Yeah. Do you ever feel sort of starstruck or in awe?
No, I don't. So I always tell this story. One of the starstruck moments I've had was I made the top 2. So, and I got flown out to Oklahoma City Thunder we got a job with Oklahoma City Thunder as a sports scientist, and they flew me out and Kate at the time to do the interviews, and and I met Kevin Durant, I met Steven Adams, and I was on the court with Stephen Curry doing his. On the court, literally as close as we are to each other now, watching him do his warm-up routine. So that was, and then I was in the back with Russell Westbrook doing his warm-up with his trainer and stuff. So that was pretty starstruck. But that was the only time.
Come on, that's out of it. That's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. That was crazy. I didn't get the job, but I think it was a blessing, really. But
why?
They chose. They said that the other guy had more experience working in the US than me. So.
Can't argue with that. Did you bro out with Steven Adams over the?
No, I just met him. Shook his hand in the the sports director said he's from New Zealand, and he was like.
I'm just so intrigued by him. I saw some stuff online last week about him sleeping on a mattress on the floor in his house, despite earning like 50 or 60 million a year. Like he's just such a basic, I don't know, Spartan sort of existence. He's just has. Like no care or desire for material goods.
But it's funny, I've been involved around top sports people so much, all the time. So you kind of just becomes the norm. It just really does. So.
Yeah, you dropped some other names. So Team New Zealand, what did you do with Team New Zealand?
I was head of performance.
Right. So you were dealing with the cyclors?
No, it wasn't cyclors. It was the grinders. So it was for the campaign that we were here, when it was here, the one during that COVID period.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was the head of performance there with my colleague Adam Story, so it was me and him. He was leading the conditioning, I was leading the kind of the endurance side. So it was really good though. It was very different though. I think from my own experiences with other sports, like kayak, with like rowing, the training is everything. So this is such a focus, is that we get the training right. This is the priority. Whereas when you work for something like Team New Zealand, it's like, they'll get the training done when they need to get it done. Let's focus on getting the boat faster first. But it's true. I mean, of course, the boat's making the biggest difference. But it was
the training is like the 1%er.
Yeah, it is exactly. It's the training's making a small part of the bigger picture. Whereas. You can have the fittest, fastest grinders in the world, but if you haven't got a fast boat, it's not going to do anything, is it? So that was it was interesting. It was good though. I was a good experience, that's for sure. Yeah, and we won. So
what are some? Who are some of the other teams or athletes that you've worked with?
Who to think now? I'm trying to think of some other ones. I think that would be the main one. They're the main ones in New Zealand. I mean, I'm starting to do a little bit more with some teams in Australia just through because I'm head of research for a micronutrition company called Pillar, who we do like omegas, so like your creatines, all those sorts of things, and we sponsor some of those teams, and as part of that, I go in and help them with some of their readiness to train and their training regime. So that's been awesome. I've been really enjoying that because it gives me that access to that high performance in the facilities. Oh my, Sydney Swans facilities, out of this world,
next level.
It's like compared to like Olympic sports when you go into those professional sports, and it was the same at Oklahoma City Thunder. Their facilities, they had a person in their facility, one to just do haircuts, and the other one just to style their trainers. They had like a trainer buffer. There's two things that the basketball players care about: is haircuts and trainers. So we don't want them leaving to go and get those things sorted. So they have them at the facility.
It's a different world, isn't it?
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Hey, I've got a set of questions here called Questions for Everyone, and some of these I outsourced from Instagram, and some of them are just for my own curiosity.
Okay.
So for everyday people who just want to feel better, what matters more than anything else in health and fitness?
I'd say diet. Yeah, I think diet is the main lever you can pull because it's something that you do every day, right? And it has such a massive implication on how you feel and the life you lead. And I think you can pull three levers in terms of diet, but I think you should either like restrict like the calories, so you can eat less, or you can just restrict the types of food you eat, or you can restrict the time that you eat. It's actually a Peter Attia thing. This is he talks about that and I think everyone should always pull on one of those levers during their life. Unless you're an athlete, you can probably get away with not. But I think those three things is that I always consider that if you can just be restrictive over the types of food you're eating and keeping them whole foods, I think that will have the biggest impact on how you feel for sure, because it's such a prime part of it. And eat, sleep, move. I know that's three things, but you'd be surprised at how little you need to do to get a massive cardiorespiratory benefit, and that can be so small. Like the difference between doing 0 minutes and 10 minutes of running is huge. A 10-minute run is massive compared to 10 to 20 minutes, not that much, but 0 to 10, big difference.
Yeah.
So.
What's one health myth you see on a regular as you see regular people falling for, even though the evidence says otherwise?
That's a tough one, isn't it? That's a very tough one. One health myth. I'll have to have a time. Can we cut then whilst I think about it, and then we go back into it?
If you've got nothing, we can just move on.
No, I'll definitely have one. Let me have a think for a moment. A health myth. I think sometimes I think one myth around protein restriction is definitely a myth. I think with the damage, too much protein can be damaging. You can't process it. I think protein should be the main thing that people should mainly focus on. I think that would be the main one. I think another one would be running's bad for your knees. Not true. I often hear that. My doctor did once tell me that it was bad for me to run more than 5K, so that's also not good. But I think, I think that old motto that something is better than nothing. So you just got to do a little bit of something, and I think you just do. I think that would be the. I know that's not now a myth anymore, but that's what I was thinking.
Oh no, and I love what you said before, like eat, sleep, move. It's bloody great. So eat well, do a little bit of movement, sleep well, and you're ticking those boxes.
It's everything. It sounds so simple, right? But
I think simple is good. The more simpler messages, I think the more effective it is in a lot of ways.
Yeah. But if you can, it doesn't have to be crazy amounts of movement. You don't have to be training for a Hyrox. Just if you can do those three things every day, you'll be pretty good.
Yeah. How should weekend warriors actually be training if their goal is longevity and not even finisher medals or events? Yeah,
well,
was your doctor right in that account? Like 5Ks, that's enough to run?
No, definitely not. I think she was saying it was actually actively bad for my health, but I think it. Well, firstly, I mean, I feel like a bit of a broken record, but it does come back to that consistency component. Is that you have to choose an activity that you can do consistently. So you have to choose something that you enjoy doing. So if you hate running, do not choose that activity for the thing that's gonna be making the difference. So, but I think when you talk about well-being and longevity, I think aerobic fitness is one. So that might be some easy endurance with maybe some faster high intensity, and then your strength and muscle mass will be the other component. And that's how I would be petitioning my week for a longevity app. I'm actually working with a company at the moment called Kaiora, who's we're just building an app that's very much based around this, which is an app very simple, eat, sleep, move, nutrition, but the training is based around weekend warriors and people who just want to have a plan that doesn't mean that they it's not complicated, and it's more based around longevity and well-being. So it's really simple, and that will be, you will have some focuses on a sport if you want that to be, but it can just be a well-being training plan which will consist of some aerobic endurance and some strength, and those are the things that you really need to take care of as well.
That app that you're talking about might tie in with the next question, or it might not. What is a realistic training structure for someone with a job, family, and limited recovery time? Does that tie in with the app?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Because at the start of the app, we give timings, so that you would put in how much time you have available to train, right? So, but I think an hour a day is more than enough. It's like, that is a lot of training for most people. That's more than enough. So, but I think if you can set aside 30 minutes a day, you can do a lot. You can do a lot of great training and stuff for your health in that.
That's so easy.
Minutes. Yeah, it's so easy.
And if you can't do that for yourself, there's something wrong. That's like 2% of your day.
No, yeah, exactly. But it's about being. But if you can do that 7 days of the week, amazing, man. Do an hour, even better. But yeah, I mean, but if you're doing that sort of thing, provided you're not doing like an F45 maximal, like really hard training every single day, you'll be fine. You just need to. The golden rule of training is you want to. And it actually comes back to heart rate variability, because when we talked about that HRV before, and we talked about the parasympathetic system and the sympathetic system, one of the things that I found with my PhD was what you want that HRV to be high and you want it to be reasonably stable. And what happens is that if you do just high intensity training, you get that really high sympathetic drive and your HRV will gradually come down. But the other side, low intensity training, it pushes it up. So it bolsters your HRV, which is why in endurance sports, we often talk about this polarized method of training, which is like most of your training is done at a low intensity with 20%, so 80% at a low intensity, 20% at a high intensity. And that's how everyone should almost think about how they're doing their weeks, is that they're doing Monday might be just really easy aerobic, keeping your heart rate. A good rule is 180 minus your age, below that number. So if you're 40, lower than 140 heart rate. So you do one day when it's really easy aerobic training. The next day you might do something a bit harder, which might be a combination of strength and high intensity interval training. Wednesday you go easy. Thursday you do something harder. Friday you go easy. Saturday you do something harder. Sunday you go easy again, and that's how or even a full rest day. Then you go back into Monday, and that's how you can cycle your weeks. But the most important thing is that you separate the days: hard day, easy day. And that 180 minus your age sounds really simple. It's called the maximum aerobic fitness test, and it's really good for most people who want to do basic aerobic training. Get a heart rate monitor, wear it. 180 minus your age, train below that. And for many, that could be walking, easy, or might be easy biking, but it's really a really good basic measure.
What's your professional thought on wristwatches with a built-in heart rate monitor? Are they accurate enough?
They're not. I think they're getting better, but I wouldn't trust. I find them typically okay cycling, not so good running because of the movement. Yeah.
What should people in their 30s, 40s, and 50s be doing now that their future self will thank them for? I feel like you almost covered that before, like half an hour a day, whatever time you can spare. Strength
training, protein intake, I think would be the main, especially as you get 30 to 40. I mean, after 40 in particular. I mean, I turned 42 and I managed to put on quite a bit of muscle, so it can be done.
Cause I was going to call you out on that because you weren't doing any strength training in your 30s, were you? Back
I
when
wasn't.
You couldn't do a pull-up?
I wasn't at all. I was doing just purely Ironman. In fact, in 2018, I did almost no strength training at all, but I still managed okay. But since then, I've managed to put on about 10 kilos of muscle. So.
Yeah, I think it becomes harder to, but it's still, if you're going to, the grass grows where you water it. So if you're going to lift weights, you're definitely going to put on some muscle, aren't you?
You will, yeah. Provided you have, it's not actually strictly true. If you just lifted weights and you didn't eat a lot, had minimal protein, and you did a lot of endurance training, you wouldn't put on any weight, not muscle. But if the environment has to be right. So you have to be a little bit of a calorie surplus. You have to have the protein available to you, and then you could then you will likely put on some weight. Yeah, I think one of the things that I found was that I was doing very little endurance training in the early parts when I was trying to put on more size, and I think that was probably a key point. I didn't really enjoy it very much though.
It's funny, isn't it? Because you go to a marathon event and you see some good marathon runners, and a lot of them look sick. But Ironman athletes, they tend to look a bit healthier.
A little bit more.
Were you quite a scrawny Ironman?
It varied. I wasn't as scrawny as some of the scrawnier ones. But I was definitely scrawnier than I am now, for sure. And I'm not. And even if I go to a Hyrox, I'm actually one of the smaller Hyrox athletes still. There's much bigger guys than me. But I think it helps. I mean, at the moment, I'm still like a runner bumbling through the stations. So,
do wearables actually help everyday athletes, or do they just create anxiety?
Oh, definitely help. I'm a massive believer in wearables. But I mean, you're talking to the HRV man as well, so I realise I come with my biases, right? But I think I often get so many questions about wearables. You know, what's the best Whoop or blah blah blah. But they're all. In terms of the measurement of HRV, they're all accurate, but it's the interpretation and then what you do with that, the prescription based on the interpretation is where we're kind of not really there in that wearable space yet. The prescription's not very good. But I think like that anxiety comes. Have you heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect?
No.
So the Dunning-Kruger effect is like the measurement of your knowledge, right? So you start off with something and you don't know very much about it, and then you and then you learn a little bit, and you think, I know everything about this, you know, and it's like, and then those people who have learned a little bit about heart rate variability, they start to get anxious about it, and they get, oh my God, what's happening now, you know, and they get a low reading and they get anxious. But then once you get over the other side and you get to like that expert knowledge, you're like, hang on, I don't really know that much about this, but that's okay, you know, and you're kind of a bit more laissez-faire about it, or be what it'll be.
Yeah.
But I think that Dunning-Kruger effect is what happens with people in wearables, is that those people who don't know much about it, they don't get that anxious about it. Those ones who learn a little bit about it to be dangerous, they're the ones who get anxious about it. But once you get to the other side, like someone like me who's studied it and done a PhD in it, I don't really get anxious about it. But you want that person to be controlling your prescription. That's the person. You don't want that person who knows a little bit to be controlling your prescription, because they're going to freak out, because they don't really understand what they're looking at fully.
If someone listening wants to improve their health by 20% in the next 3 months...
20%? Jeez, that's very specific.
What would you prioritise? Or 10%, 15%? Insert a percentage here.
It depends on the person. But I mean, I think it does come back to the eat, sleep, move again. That would be the three things, and it depends. And I'd look at the person, right? To what I would prioritize out of those three is like, if that person's got, they're doing the training's okay, but their diet's terrible and the sleep's good, you're going to focus on the diet. If that person has a good diet, is not doing any exercise, sleep's okay, that's how I would do it personally. But they're the three levers that you're going to always move, right? Those three things. Yep.
It's funny, isn't it? Because that figure 20%, the more unfit someone is, the more achievable that would be.
Yes.
There's no way you could improve yourself 20% in 3 months.
No, there's no way. I mean, when you're talking with Olympians, you're talking they might improve themselves by 0.2% over 4 years.
Yeah.
And it's big, that could be enough, though, those small marginal gains. Yeah.
What's one habit that gives the biggest return on investment for physical and mental health?
One habit, I think exercise. I mean, I think everyone's different. I mean, if I think about myself personally, I'm a bit. I need exercise in my day to. I always feel like, and you'll. I would think you're the same. Is that once I have that exercise portion tackled, everything else will go a little bit better in my day, and it'll be. I feel like that part is so important for everything else to follow through. And I once read this article, and it's something that I took. It was a CEO guy, and his argument says why you should always prioritize your training. And his argument was that if you don't prioritize your training, you won't do it, because the work and the other bits will always get done, like your family commitments and your work will always get done. But if you don't prioritize your training, that will always fall apart. But the other parts will always happen. You'll always get the work done. You'll always do those small parts because they have to get done. And I think, and that's the way I always try and do my training first thing in the morning, get it done, and then the rest of the parts will come on. And that's, for my mental well-being, that's so important, because I just need it. That space. Yeah.
When was the last time you had like 2 or 3 or 4 consecutive days without movement? Was it illness? Broken bone?
Yeah, well, actually, influenza. Influenza, yeah. That really got me. That was good story on that is that I did influenza. Oh, sorry, I didn't do influenza. I did Hyrox in Brisbane, and I woke up that morning and my HRV was down, and I had a bad night's sleep. But you know how you kind of know that it's not quite. It wasn't like a bad night's sleep before a race. I felt like I was a bit off, so I called Kate and I'm like, I'm feeling a bit off here. But anyway, I did the race anyway. It's my first ever Hyrox, so I was there in Brisbane. I did the race, and then I finished the race, and I'm sat around them in the Brisbane sun, and I'm like just outside with a hoodie on, shivering, can't stop shivering, like really bad shivering. And I went, I said, I'm going to have to see, my friend was there, and he went, mate, you do not look good. You're going to have to see the medic. So I went to see the medic, and I had a temperature of 39 degrees, but I was shivering like crazy. And so I did this race with influenza. I managed to get myself back to New Zealand somehow, spreading my lurgy all through the airport, all over the plane. The poor person sat next to me.
Is this pre-COVID, post-COVID?
It's post, yeah.
Post-COVID,
it's
oh my God.
Yeah, it's post-COVID.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was, so I managed to get myself home, but then I was so sick. Like for 5 days, I was like literally bed, couch. So that was the last time but it probably wouldn't have been that bad if I didn't do a Hyrox with influenza, to be honest. So,
I love it. Like when I first started running, I'd say go to Fiji for a holiday, and I'd enjoy having a week without it. Now, when I go away, like fitness and movement, it's part of my holiday because I just don't feel complete without it. I tell people you got to get to the point where it doesn't feel like a chore anymore. It just becomes part of your being.
Exactly. It's just totally. It's like brushing your teeth, right? It's just so normal. To get out and do something. I mean, I was listening to was it Matthew Mahoney? Yep. And he was saying that when he goes on holiday, he does two things: he exercises and writes, because he says that's what he does. That's just the way he goes. And I'm the same as are you. That when I go away, I'll still do something.
Yeah, I enjoy it. What advice do you give to people who feel like they've left it too late?
To do what? To do anything? To do some exercise or?
Yeah, probably to do some exercise.
Yeah, I think,
Is it, okay, let's make it marathon specific. Is it ever too late? Like I'm thinking about my mum. She's in her 70s, so she's been a lifelong runner. She can still run. If someone was 70 and they decided to run one, could they?
I think that would be quite difficult. But I think it's never too late to... It depends what you're trying to do. I think there's always small things you can do to achieve a goal. You just have to... that goal might have to be a little bit smaller. But if you're 70, maybe... like walk a kilometre or something. It's something's better than nothing, as I said before. So if you have to just set the goal setting so important that you set the goal correctly. But I don't think it's ever too late to do something. I mean, it definitely gets harder, but the goals have to be different. I was reading a paper the other day that was looking at like weight training in 70-year-olds, and they put them through a weight training routine, and it's really hard for them to gain muscle mass. But then they put them through a weight training routine with adequate protein, and they actually gain some muscle. So even at that age, it is never too late, but it's just a bit harder. If you're a young 20-year-old and you give them weight training, they could probably not have that much protein and have a bad diet and still put on muscle. But as you get older, you have to be a little bit more down, have things in tune with what you're trying to achieve and be a bit more scientific. Well, not scientific, but it's going to be harder for sure.
Yeah, and there's train harder, not smarter. I mean, I used to be able to run with hangovers in my 20s.
Yeah.
and get like long training runs smashed out with pretty decent hangovers. Couldn't dream of doing that now.
No.
So you just have to accept your limitations, I think, as you get a bit older.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. When I was at university, we would be out and then we'd be in the pool at 5 o'clock in the morning after the night before, and but I couldn't imagine doing that now.
There's that saying, youth is wasted on the young. It really is.
Yeah, it'd be really hard.
Hey, thanks so much for answering those. They're bloody great, and I'm sure there's a lot of people that are going to get a lot out of them.
Yeah, I hope so.
You met my ex and my business partner JJ on the way in. She hates exercise, or she says she hates exercise. She's been on Ancestry.com and she's found out she's got something called, there's a name for it, like a non-athletic gene.
That's interesting.
So she's like, Dom, you like running because you've got the sprinter gene, but I've got the
non-athletic gene.
Yes, I forget what
Jeez, I never knew that was a thing.
So she's like, it's not my fault I hate exercise. It's a genetic thing. What would you say to someone like her? Someone that's completely inactive.
Do you know? So I say this because, like, if you ever met my wife Kate, most people think she's like mega athletic, and she doesn't do that much. But she looks really athletic. But she controls the diet. She has a very good diet. But a thing that I always tell people who really hate exercising: sauna.
So mimics the benefits of
cardiorespiratory exercise, and there's lots of benefits to it. So it's the best thing. If you really don't like exercising, if you can sauna 5 times a week, you have to do it quite regularly, 20 to 30 minutes, 80 to 90 degrees. It's hard. It's not. You have to make it. It has to be unpleasant-ish for at least the last 10 minutes. Big benefits. So that's what I would always recommend to those people. I mean, the diet side, get that sorted. But if you can get the diet and do your sauna, it's a good step forward if you really don't like exercising. Yeah. Even if you've got the non-athletic gene.
I feel like I've got JJ in my ear now saying, yeah, but I hate the heat.
Yeah. Cold water immersion?
I started saunaing about 18 months ago just after reading so much about the health benefits. It's been a game changer, right? I love it.
Yeah. And so I have a sauna and an ice bath at home. Well, obviously me and Art were like 2 peas in a pod, and we're just like, let's go around and sauna. But so we have a good routine is that we do, we get the kids down and we go in the sauna every night, 20 minutes, and it's great for sleep, good for a little routine. It's brilliant. So.
Oh, you got a little home setup?
Yeah.
Oh, it's probably a good way to just like de-stress and talk about your day and communicate as a couple.
And it's a great way to connect because you sit in the sauna. We don't have our phones in there, of course, and you just chat and it's sometimes it's too hot to chat, so we're like suffering. But it's really good. I recommend it. I mean, obviously it's a bit of a privilege to have a sauna in your house, but if you really can't, if you really don't like exercising, most people can get their head around that.
Oh, yeah, it is a privilege, but the entry level, it's fairly affordable. Like you can get a little like 2-seater Oslo or something for a couple of grand.
You can. You have to be careful with like the infrared saunas versus the Finnish saunas. So you generally don't get this. So infrared has its benefits for sure. There are benefits from infrared in itself, but some of those cardiovascular benefits come from being very hot, and you can't typically get those infrared saunas hot enough to really elicit that same response. So the Finnish saunas are a little bit more expensive than the infrared saunas, because the ones in the box I think typically are infrared.
Yeah, the home ones. Well, for anyone that's in central Auckland that wants to use a sauna, join the Herne Bay Racket Club. That's where I go. It's got it's the best.
Oh, right.
It is so hot. I'll sit up there on the top shelf. First 5 minutes I'm good. After 5 minutes I've got my head down. I'm a broken man.
Yeah. And there's lots of different. So there's ways. When I talk to athletes about sauna, I always say there's like different training zones of sauna. So you could go like an entry level is you go in the morning, not having exercised before, take in some cold water, or even have a cold shower before and go in. But you can make it harder and harder. So you could, if you go in, like do your training and then go in the sauna and don't drink during, really hard, massive response though. So there's different levels of sauna that you can take to make it harder or easier.
Why would you not hydrate?
So it's more from an acclimation response. Is that there's a bit more of an acclimation response in terms of the ability to cope with heat when you don't hydrate during, because it also makes it easier. So sauna's the same. It's the same with training. Like training is always a dose response relationship. So if you train, the more you train, the faster you get. Or the more you adapt, right? And it's the same with sauna. So the more you stress, the bigger the adaptation. So if you make it, the harder it is, like really hot versus when you've like core temperature is already high, you've just exercised, it makes it much harder, and then you'll get a bigger response. So,
brilliant.
Yep.
Hey, thanks for that. One more card. home stretch, conclusion. We're at we're the last 5Ks of the Ironman. How's it been? Do you enjoy doing these podcasts?
I love them, yeah. I love talking about this kind of thing.
Yeah, You've been on quite a few. I've listened to quite a few of them. Some of them are very geeky. This one's probably very base level for you. It hasn't been too dumbed down.
No, I've enjoyed it. It's been more personal than usually it's like lots of like academics and studies and like into the nitty gritty. But it's cool.
Well, I appreciate
more about my experiences, so that's nice.
Yeah. How do you personally define success now compared to other stages of your career? And I suppose what I mean is like your goals are sort of different now. Like you're not chasing world records. You're not chasing podium finishes.
Yeah, I think when you become a dad and you're a father, I think your everything surrounds your kids, isn't it? Really, for me, it's like success for me is trying to provide the best life I possibly can for them. Really, with that businesses and giving those the opportunities that I definitely don't want them to live like a mollycoddle life that's spoiled, but I want them to be able to have the opportunities that they can have if they're available. So I think that would be my idea of success.
Not mollycoddle them, but also protect them from Kellogg's and
yeah.
Kellogg's and the big orange and yellow.
Exactly, but I think that would be the main things.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that everyone has their own personal successes, and I still have a lot to achieve. I really like goals because I feel like I have business goals, but a physical goal is really sets my. Having that in place sets up my other things really well, and I don't like I'm such a competitive person. I don't like not having competitions in my view. So I still have those personal goals.
But with the physical stuff, are you competing against yourself now, or are you still trying to compete against others? So, for example, Hyrox, which is your thing at the moment, are you trying to win, or are you trying to better the time that you did last time?
Both. I mean, they're both go together, right? So I've not been beaten yet in a Hyrox in my age group. So we broke me and my partner, we broke the world record for the over 40s in the doubles in Melbourne.
Incredible.
So we hopefully me and so he's from Australia. We're going to go to the World Championships and hopefully win the World Championships in the doubles in our age group. But I mean, it's all about age groups now. I mean, I do kind of wish that I was. Who knows? It's all hindsight's a glorious thing, isn't it? But I always think, maybe I wish I discovered Hyrox when I was a bit younger and it was around, because I do quite enjoy it, but.
Fuck, you're so competitive, eh? I heard you on another podcast and they introduced you as like a world champion, and you interrupted them and said age group.
Yeah. Well, there's a bit of a difference though. Age group world champion. Yeah.
If you could go back, you may have even just answered that. If you could go back and give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be? Is there anything you do differently?
Not really. I think I wouldn't be. I feel like I tried too hard in my academics when I was really young, and I don't think it makes that much difference, to be honest.
What do you mean?
Well, I think like those early days of schooling, you can just relax a bit more. I really.
That's terrible advice.
I really like got a bit stressed out by like exams and stuff like that. And
you mean sort of like secondary school age?
Yeah, exactly. I think it gets more important, but I think in the early days, I think you can relax a bit more, just chill. Maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's good advice or not.
Yeah, I was probably much the same. I was consumed by stress, like during the important exams here. Like, it's called NCEA now. It was called School Certificate when I was there. But you sort of think, fuck, if I don't pass this, my world's over. My world's crumbling.
There's a bit of that,
and you look back and it's like, chill.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think maybe there's that. But I think, I listened to your podcast with the New Zealand's David Goggins. What was it?
Jamie Milne.
Jamie Milne, yeah. And and he was a really good podcast. But I was thinking, wow, like he's got such a good backstory, hard upbringing, and unfortunately, I doesn't have any of that. So like privileged upbringing, nothing really. I had nothing really to shout about on that side.
Lovely parents,
middle
class,
exactly. So. But
but somehow you've managed to you find the hunger or drive, whatever you want to call it, to build resilience.
Yeah, the competitiveness.
Whereas other people have it forced upon them.
Yeah, I don't know where that one comes from. I think I grew up in Yorkshire, and we just got it. I mean, it's where the Brownlees are from too, and it was cold, and we just exercised outside and got amongst it, you know. And I don't know whether that was part of it, but I remember some pretty cold bike rides around Saddleworth Moor and whatnot. And but yeah, I can't really think of what would be I enjoy competition though.
Yeah, I can tell.
Yeah,
I can tell. I don't think that'll ever leave you.
No.
Yeah,
I see it in my boy now as well.
Can you?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, how does it make you feel? Do you think, like a sense of pride, or you think,
I definitely. I mean, I want him to be. I want him to be competitive.
Yeah.
You know. I think it's a good thing. So.
I think it's a good thing. Yeah, but like I was talking about before with my mum at the Paris Marathon, like her getting upset at, potentially not breaking 5 hours. I don't know. I suppose there's two sides to it. Like it's a good thing, but also. But
if you don't, I just think, but with that competitiveness comes drive, right? And it makes you want to achieve certain, it just means you want to achieve more. You know? I think it's important. So.
What do you think your best and worst habits are? Or if Kate was here, what would she say?
I'll have to ask her. My best habit is consistency, I guess. It's routine. I'm a very routine person, I think. Is routine a habit? Is being routine a habit?
Yep. Yeah.
So I'm very routine, and I think that helps with a lot of stuff. My worst habit. Probably too much exercise.
No such thing.
I do think I do feel like I do have that mild endurance addiction. I think it is I really need it. So maybe that's also can be a bad thing in some respects.
I don't know. I think it's a good addiction. It's like we talked about at the very beginning about the word obsessed. Obsessed and addiction. They're sort of in the same sort of ecosystem. They can be good things, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
What are you most afraid of?
The future. I mean, I wouldn't say I'm afraid of the future, but I think I was talking to my friend the other day about this, and I think If life was now and you knew this was life for the rest of your days, it's great, right? But you just never know what's around the corner. I think who knows? But I think that would be. It's not really a true fear.
No, because you just roll with it.
Roll with it.
It's crazy how fast everything's changing, eh? Yeah. In terms of AI, how has that impacted you?
It's definitely. I've seen a few. With my coaching business, I think I've seen a bit of an impact. So with my coaching business, we have online courses, one-on-one coaching. So that's we have very specific one-on-one coaching with a number of different coaches. And then we have an online platform that's more of a community-based thing within the triathlon space. And I say that's taken a hit from AI because there's more AI coaching-based platforms around now. But the one-on-one stuff, the human interaction, I wouldn't say has changed at all.
What do you think of AI? Say someone that's listening to this wants to run their first marathon and they put a good prompt into ChatGPT. Do you like that, or would you say don't go near it?
I think it's reasonable. It's not bad. It's not too bad for you. I mean, it's not brilliant, but for someone who's doing
it's not personalised, is it?
No, it's not personalised, and it doesn't give you. I mean, training's. I talked about that stimulus and response. The stimulus is so important in terms of the intensity and how you're doing that, and making sure that your training is demand driven. And what I mean by that is that it needs to be if you're doing a marathon, you're not going to do much bench press. If you're doing a powerlifting, you're not going to do much running. And so you have to understand. I don't think ChatGPT is quite there in understanding where the intensities lie of the event, and then the intensities, the very specific intensity regulation for the individual to do the right training.
If Kate, your wife, or your kids, or your best friends were in the next room listening to this, talking about you behind your back, what 3 words would you like them to use to describe you?
Oh, gosh. That's hard. You asked a lot of tough questions, Dom, I have to say. These are the same questions you ask for everyone?
Yeah, more or less. Yeah. This one came about. You must know Dougal Allen.
Yes, of course, yeah.
So I had Dougal on the podcast.
Yeah.
He was talking about one of those God's Own adventure races he was doing, and in his team was Simone Meyer, who's also been on the podcast, and Richie McCaw, the greatest All Black of all time. Yeah. And he said a game they were playing in the middle of the night to keep everyone awake and stimulated was Richie was asking everyone what 3 words they'd like people to use about them at their funeral.
Okay.
And one of Richie's words for himself was integrity, and Dougal had only just met him a day earlier and had been doing this event with him, and he said it's funny because that's one word that he would have thought would suit Richie.
Yeah, right, okay.
So what about for you, Dr. Dan Plews?
So are these words that I would like to think they would say?
Yes.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
I quite like this question because it's on the surface it seems kind of trivial, but once you've got those words, you can sort of reverse engineer your life.
Yeah, okay.
I'd
like to think one of them would be protective. Mm-hmm. I mean, I like to think I'm very protective of my tribe, the people around me, the people who are close to me. I think that's one word. I think it's not the word, but I wouldn't say actionable. But what I mean by that is the actions I have. I don't say no. It's not about what I say. It's about the actions that you do. I think beliefs versus behaviors, and I think I like to think that my behaviors show my beliefs. It's not really a word, but I like to think.
I know what you mean.
You know what I mean. And then the last one would be. What do I like to think? Maybe. What's the tough one for the last one? Hey. Yeah, I'm thinking like honest. That sort of word.
Like integrity.
Yeah, it's like integrity, I guess, but I didn't want to use that word because you just said it.
That's all right.
Yeah. But, I think like...
it's a great word.
Yeah. Like, I think, I always remember there's, you want to behave... So, I think I was listening to another podcast. Oh, yeah, it was Marius was on... Marius from... He was on Emirates Team New Zealand and he went on the Between Two Beers podcast. Yes. And he said something in that as like, behave like your son is watching. And I think that's what I'm talking about, the behaviours, that sort of thing is that I always like to think that whatever my behaviours are always true and honest and behaving with the right actions.
Oh, I love that. Oh, thanks for putting so much thought into that answer.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
Are you proud of yourself? This is a difficult question for an Englishman to answer, isn't it?
Very difficult question for an Englishman to answer.
I think English are even worse than Kiwis at answering that. It takes a great deal of difficulty for a lot of us to, admit that we are.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I would. I think I'm definitely. I would say I've achieved things that I wanted to achieve, and I'm proud of those things, and I often think I wouldn't want to be anyone else other than me, So that's a good thing, right? So that means I'm proud of that side. But yeah, obviously I want to achieve more. But from what I've done so far, it's been good. And then I think that I know I always bring back to the family, and that's my biggest achievement is having a healthy family, and they're so vibrant and happy. So that's the biggest achievement.
What a great place to end it.
No,
looking forward to see what you do in the future. You're not even middle-aged yet. You're still a young man.
43? Is that not middle-aged?
I don't know. I got mates that are 60 that call themselves middle-aged, and I'm thinking to myself, well, if you live to 120...
Yeah, what's middle-aged, yeah.
Seems like a very big band. But no, you've still got a lot of mountains to climb.
I hope so, yeah. I hope so. No, thanks for having me on. It's been awesome.
Thanks, Dr. Dan Plews. This has been a great episode. I've really enjoyed it, and I know a lot of people are going to get a lot out of this.
Yeah,
so thank you so much.
Perfect. Thanks very much.
Mate.